I think that, first of all, I think the whole reason why there's so much debate over the true calendar is because there's no scripture in the Bible that literally just says, okay, this is exactly when you are supposed to observe the first month of the year. If we believe that God terraformed the whole earth and wanted everyone on the planet to follow this calendar, then we would have to take into consideration that the southern and the northern hemisphere have spring and autumn at opposite times of the year. Exodus 34:22, it says, "And thou shalt observe the feast of weeks of the first fruits of the wheat harvest and the feast of ingathering at the year's end." So a lot of people look at this, and I did too, and we think, oh, okay, it's saying whatever, it's saying, oh, observe that feast at the end of the year. But wait a minute. Okay, neither one of these feasts are at the end of the year. The feast of ingathering, which is Sukkot right here, that's in the seventh month. We know that. We can go look real quick. Leviticus 23. It actually means coming round or a turning. So what makes more sense is that this scripture is saying, observe the first month and the seventh month at the year's turning. So observe the first and the seventh month at the turning of the year. So they're talking about two turnings of the year. So we know that there are four turnings of the year. We've got summer, fall, winter, and spring. But since we know that the first month, we're talking about the first month and the seventh month, since we know that that's at the greening of the barley, Abib is the greening of the barley, then we're talking about the equinoxes. We're talking about spring and fall only. So that's the two turnings of the year that it's talking about. To observe the sun, the moon, and the stars, and observe the turning of the year. Observe the first month and the seventh month at the turning of the year, using the sun, the moon, and the stars yourself with your own eyes. That was how they did it. This person explains how to observe the turn of the year. And so I'm going to basically tell you what he says. He just explains how to do this with your own eyes, to go outside and observe the turning of the year so that you know when the first month is and when the seventh month is. In 2012, because I want to show that that the standard Jewish calendar in 2012 was a month early, and also in 2013. So here's the full moon. You go out on the full moon, and it's rising in the east at the same time that the sun is setting in the west. So this was on February 8th in 2012, and you can see that the moon is to the left of due east. So the next month you go out, and the full moon is rising to the right of due east. That's the turn right there. That's the turn. So on the full moon, you go out and observe the sun, both the sun and the moon, to see if they turn. So the moon was on this side in February, and then it turned in March. But if you look to the west on the same day, right here, to the setting sun, you can see that the sun is still on the left-hand side of due west. It doesn't make its turn until April. So the moon made its turn on March 8th, the full moon of March 8th, but the sun didn't make its turn on March 8th. It made it on April 6th. So on the full moon, you go out and observe both the sun and the moon to see if they've made the turn yet. So that turn happened on April 6th. Let me go back here. So that turn was observed on April 6th, the full moon of April 6th. Well, you don't start the month on the full moon, you start it on the new moon. And the reason is Kodesh, and it literally means the new moon. New moon is the first month. So the true first month of 2012 happened on April 22nd. Okay, this website will count 7 months from April 21st. That was the new moon right here. The first crescent was on the 22nd. So you can't see the new moon, obviously it's dark. But anyway, we'll count 7 months. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So on the first crescent of the moon on October, that new moon of the 15th, the first crescent the very next day, which is the first visible sign of the new moon, we had an extremely rare fulfillment of Scripture. And it was the fulfillment of Revelation 12, 1 through 5. I have a video, and the last time it happened was 500 years ago. It's extremely. The start of the 7th month, the true Feast of Trumpets in 2012. So that was really amazing. And then we go to the full moon right here on March 27th, and we look for the turn of the year again. So this time again, it's going to turn from left to right. So in January, you can see that the moon is on the left still, and the moon turns in February. So the full moon of January was still on the left, and the full moon of February had turned, but the sun is still on the left-hand side. So the sun hasn't made its turn yet. They both have to turn. So the sun doesn't make its turn until March 27th. So March 27th, 2013 was the observed turn. So the next new moon would be the true first month right here. Well, the really interesting thing about this was that on April 11th, which was the first crescent of the moon, the first visible crescent of the new moon, we had the first major solar flare of the year. Some of you guys will remember that. The first major solar flare of the year eclipse on second Passover, and a solar eclipse on the second month. Would have been the evening of the 24th until the evening of the 25th, and there it is, a lunar eclipse. Well, then the second month would be right here, and we had a solar eclipse on that new moon of that second month. And you can see from Numbers 9 that the 14th day of the second month that evening is second Passover. Lunar eclipse right on Passover, and then again on second Passover. So I don't know about you, but that pretty much blew my mind. And that was the final confirmation for me that this is the true calendar. Not it was on the first crescent of the moon that Pope Benedict announced his resignation. That was in the 7th month from this abomination of desolation that Daniel 12:11 talks about. Well, that was so major. It wasn't just the resignation of any pope. It was the resignation of the 7th king. In Revelation, it tells us that the 8th king is the last king. It was, blessed are those who are longing for and reaching for the 1335th day. This landed on the standard Feast of Trumpets, and it's a very, very popular idea nowadays that the standard Feast of Trumpets is when the rapture will occur. So there were many, many people longing for and reaching for that day. That's exactly it. Right now, we are in the midst of the Feast of Weeks that will end right here on June 13th and 14th. That'll be true Shavuot. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. I think it's just absolutely amazing. And that in combination with all of these other fulfillments that we've been seeing,